States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this is my first time doing some mayor duties, so bear with me if I don't get all the quite wordings or orders right, but I will do my best. So attendance, right?
Tony, Jessica.
What?
Mr. Bartlett?
Here.
Mrs. Graves?
Here?
Dr. Lewis?
Here.
Mrs. Rankin? Mr. Stelzer?
Here.
And Mr. York?
Here.
Okay. Need a motion and a second to excuse Mrs. Rankin.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
Mrs. Graves? Do I still have to vote for everything too? Aye.
Double whammy.
Double whammy. Okay. All right, so we have Mr. Kramer here this evening, our fire services consultant, to discuss his final report and to answer any questions that we might have. So with that, Bill?
Well, good evening, and thanks again for the opportunity to assist Mariemont on making sure its citizens get the very best in fire and EMS service. I think my report should have been read by most of you by now. Hopefully you got through it, at least looked at all the pictures.
Thank you.
But I'm here to answer questions and maybe follow up a little bit. Once the decision was made loud and clear by the Citizens Committee, by my report, and by council itself when they endorsed both reports, it became quite clear that we're going to try to preserve the Mariemont Fire Department intact to provide immediate fire and EMS service from the center of the village here. It's a quality operation. It's one of a kind. It's very special. And I look at maybe a half a dozen different fire departments every year as a consultant, and this is genuinely special. You have a good thing going. So I don't think I'll rehash all the details of the report. That decision was made. As a follow-up, we did agree that there are ways we can economize to preserve the Mariemont Fire Department. There are some savings that can be made with equipment. There are some savings that could be made if necessary, and if there's a wholesale reduction in the city budget in future years by looking at some variable staffing options. There are some new initiatives where we could have some more cooperation between the fire and the police departments so that the police department would be more of an ally on the scene. They were often there first or simultaneously with the fire department. And there are some tasks that they can do to gain efficiencies for the overall operation, such as if the police cruiser's blocking the street right where the fire hydrant connection is made, and that's often the case, they can actually do the connection to the hydrant, freeing up that additional firefighter. Those are some of the initiatives that have been discussed already with Chief Hines and with Chief Copeland, and a lot of these discussions are already underway. So we are looking at things we can do now that we've decided. We made that decision. The facts and figures were clear. We're keeping Mariemont Fire and EMS as is, but we're looking at new ways to gain efficiencies. I did send the mayor and Mr. Bartlett about a 4-page summary of some of these cost-saving initiatives. So if anybody has questions for me about the original report or about some of these new savings initiatives, I'd be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
So Bill, I did have a question. Thank you for pulling together the 4-page document, like you said. I wasn't clear, the first one about saving on apparatus and rolling stock. There wasn't a specific item here. Is there something specifically you had in mind with this, or I wasn't clear if you had, a definitive thing, or if it was more just generically thinking?
Yeah, it's become a little more clear. I did send that to you immediately after our council meeting, and since then, we've had several discussions with Chief Hines, Chief Copeland, and what we're trying to do is combine 3 vehicles into one, and I think it could be paid for with the sales of the older apparatus, and it'll save the approximately $600,000 to $700,000 that would have been required otherwise for the new pumper in 2026. And I'm going to call Chief Copeland up to explain how he thinks he can combine three old vehicles into one new one, and I do think this is a very efficient one in woodwork. It passes the test. I have several other clients right now looking at the same thing. So, Dan, you want to elaborate a little bit more on specifically what this would be?
How are we tonight? Everybody doing
Good,
okay?
how you doing, Dan?
Looked at what came out of the report, went back through our stock as time went on, seen that we had some items that had some value that we weren't currently using the way that they needed to be used. Came up with a price comparison of what we needed to do and what the future was holding out, trying to look out 10 years from now. So with that, we were looking at $750,000 for a fire truck in that time. And then looking at what our EMS equipment and what our rolling stock was during that time, and replacement of a staff vehicle. The vehicle, instead of putting the fire truck on the road all the time, the big ladder truck, the staff vehicle it's easier maneuverable, and it costs a lot less to maintain and use. So then it came to our attention that there is this thing called a mini pumper out there. So we got rid of our pump. What this truck would do is it brings a pump. It's actually a smaller truck, but it has the same capabilities as the truck that we have downstairs, minus the ladder, a little bit less hose. We don't have to buy the equipment because we already have the equipment for it. What it's also going to allow us to do is if we decide to sell the ambulance and work on that, we will now be able to bill for ALS runs that we make with that truck, and then we're not replacing the staff vehicle. So now we take that $50,000 out of in 3 years, we take that $50,000 out of the general fund that they were going to ask for. And then what it also does is when the ladder's out to be maintained or for service, because that's a real big thing with us keeping it up, keeping our equipment nice, we'll still have firefighting capabilities within the village plus EMS capabilities within the village. So the stuff that's on the ambulance that makes it an ALS ambulance, we would put on that truck. So when that shows up on a scene now, we don't bill for that. When that truck shows up and our guys start their services and giving out their stuff, we will be able to bill for those services on that too. So that was just a plan. It looks like it gets down a lot of the alleyways a lot better, and it would literally replace 3 vehicles within this village.
So do we still have the ladder truck? I mean, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's just.
So we have the ladder truck, and then we have this
Quick attack.
attack pumper, mini pumper. Is
Yeah.
or is that the same thing? Is an attack pumper the same as a
Yeah,
mini pumper?
yeah, they're the same.
Okay.
They're the same. The difference is instead it's on a commercial Ford chassis. Well, guess what we have already downstairs?
Okay.
So we already have the oil filters. We already do the own maintenance. We're familiar with the 6.7 motor that comes in the truck. So when we buy our stuff, the 5 filters we got to buy a year, it's 5 filters that gets used for everything instead of, if you've ever walked down there, you know we've got stuff laying around. We're consolidating that down. When we sold the other truck to Park Hills, we were able to take that equipment off there, and that is available stock for us to use if we need be. It was also available if anything happened to the current stuff that we're using now. So we've added a surplus of hoses, of fire nozzles, all the little things that jump up and make a cost as that time goes on. The thing is with that is that truck can go and be maintained at Beachmont Ford, or it can be maintained right down the street, where our truck, we have to, for our ladder truck, somebody specialized has to come and work on that truck. So it's an idea. I think it's pretty forward thinking, and I think instead of throwing money at multiple vehicles and doing multiple things, we consolidate it down into one, but we're covering ourselves for when the big ladder truck goes out, we'll still have a pump capability within the village to do our own fire suppression in that.
So so the 3 that it takes out of the staff vehicle, the ambulance, the second ambulance we have right now, and then the pumper truck that we're selling, those, okay.
Yeah,
that's the
so
3
we've
for one.
combined it all into one vehicle that will be able to fit down some of the lower alleyways, even though our ladder truck can and stuff. But right now, our staff vehicle that we got, unfortunately, the motor went down on it. instead of looking for that money, we put that off because we want to table these ideas and think about different ways of bringing in revenue and doing the way that we can fix that without placing a burden back onto the village.
And how much does this, the tack pumper thing, how is it? how much-
Brand new, if we went all bells and whistles, I found them as low as 180.
Uh-huh. Can you buy them used, or, like, we're buying, somebody else is buying ours used, can we buy one used
Yeah,
too?
yeah,
Okay.
you can buy them with low hours, and I've looked online, I haven't seen one over even brand new at 210,000 brand new.
Ah, okay. So you said 180,000 new, and we just haven't seen one yet for the.
Yeah, I've got some fillers out there looking around. You guys brought me into the world of looking at bids and stuff like that. I looked out for looking around on that.
How long have these been around?
1970, I found one in 1979 in Muncie, Indiana, and they still use a mini pumper to run around Ball State University. Notre Dame uses them solely for that. Nassau, Bahamas use them, all small villages, because let's think about it, it's, 750,000 is what we were looking at, and now we take that away, and I think it's something to really look at. I'd like to work with you guys and build a process together of how we can do that, and let me help pay for it, so. Any other questions? I'm gonna turn the floor back over to Chief Kramer.
Rob, I think there are pictures of,
Yeah, yeah,
I did leave a few pictures of the
yep.
small attack pumper that can be combined for advanced life support purposes as well. So I do think that's a viable option. So there are, you get one-time savings with these capital investments, but they're significant savings. We're talking about, instead of, by the time 2026 comes around, you're looking at maybe close to $1 million to replace. They're about 600,000 now for a new pumper. So, and everything's going up in price. So I do think that that's an expense you will not have to incur. There's anywhere from 700,000 to $1 million in 2026 will not be something you're looking at. Instead, this is something you could do now, and will give you a lot of new versatility, plus the savings. And then, as I mentioned, there are these longer-term projections where you can look at some staffing options if that ever became necessary. Right now, it doesn't appear to be, but it's an option. I want to thank Chief Copeland, Chief Hines, for excellent cooperation I got getting facts and figures together.
So I'm not done with the questions, because this has been really helpful data. So one of the things that came in your report, actually Tim Wiley had put together this list of potential issues from a facility standpoint, and I was just curious. I mean, so there's some things from a prioritization standpoint. If we wanted to pick off the top 1 or 2 or 3, what would you do from that list? Because your report said we don't have to do major, but Tim's stuff some of this stuff sounds like it should probably be addressed, like, the carbon monoxide exhaust system or something, some of that stuff. Seems like if we're gonna still be here, we should probably address some of those things.
Yeah, I think I would start first with the living quarters and accommodations, see if there are improvements that could be made there, and the other things really. Now, there's nothing that has to be done immediately, and I believe Tim points that out.
Yeah.
So it could be
But I just didn't know if we should be thinking about, at least talking through and prioritizing some of this stuff, because I know that, some of this is police evidence storage is one of the things they talked about, and I was just curious to see which one of these should we maybe, are more important to address sooner rather than later, maybe not right away, but just, again, helping to prioritize looking at some of these things, and when might it make sense to do some of those things.
Yeah,
Turnout gear being stored, and that was another thing where it says, he said here, turnout gear off-gassing is harmful for the firefighter. So it's like, gosh, if that's, that's the case, we ought to be looking at doing something to address that, with a separate exhaust system or something, so.
Yeah, I would just, I don't want to get too much in detail, because I think that would be more of a local decision with the good officers you have here.
Okay.
But I do think that, from my perspective, anything that deals with safety and accommodation for the crew, that would be my highest priority.
Okay. And then, one of the things that, Dan, you'd come up with a really good idea, I thought, was before, when we were having those other meetings before, was, I guess there's a, you mentioned there's some kind of equipment that can go on the fire truck and on the lights, the traffic lights.
Yeah.
Because we provide mutual aid to both parties, and so, that would be great, because, you know, we're closer to that part of Columbia Township, they're closer to our industrial zone, to have that equipment that allows those, you know, those lights to sync up when the fire truck is approaching or whatever, to be able to line up.
It's an inverter system that pops out. City of Fairfield found it, put it on theirs after they had a major incident, which one of their residents lost their lives. So all that does is it'll go traffic way, depending on which way the police, fire, anything that makes a noise, it will pop that light and it will make them have the right of way. Now, that didn't work today, because my wife got her car totaled today, so.
Oh, no.
But that's what it does. What I want to let you guys know is I've reached out to Weinstrop's office. Right now, there's a House bill, 1415 right now, that's looking at the infrastructure bill that was given to me by Chief Hines, that's in the Senate right now, looking for that over 73% of United States fire and EMS services are in buildings that are over 40 years old and built under that. He's asking for, to be put into a FEMA fund,
Okay.
that we would be eligible for some of those fundings that came out. So I reached out to the local politicians, trying to give them that information so that they'll take a look at the House bill right now. So if any of you guys have any power with that, I can get you the exact.
That's in the state of Ohio, or is that federal?
Federal.
Federal,
And
okay.
they're trying to
that's the
push it in on
infrastructure
the
bill,
back
okay.
end of the infrastructure.
Got it.
So while we were doing this about the coding system for the lights, we found out that there is some funding out there. I can still pursue that funding through there. At the time, though, it was locked up with the stalemate in DC, but I can look at that system for us. And it works for that. You can even put them on snow plows to give them the right of way. So, I mean, it's just, it holds the light for up to 35 seconds without really messing up with traffic, depending on which way the siren comes. If you've ever been through Evendale, they have it all the way from one end to the other of their village. And the city of Blue Ash now is starting to put them in. So it's just giving right of way to emergency vehicles or whatever you deem in your village to be that, so.
Yeah, because, I mean, the report talks about how clearly we do have a bottleneck, and so it'd be great if there was some way that, as we're providing mutual aid to each other, things can move quicker through that area.
Absolutely, and we can work on that through the funding and just being on top of what's coming out of different state and government things. And the new station identification bill is basically that everybody in the United States is not, Mariemont is not the only one dealing with this. These are communities all over the United States that are having problems with older infrastructure, older buildings, and having to make up fundage for that. So at least they're looking at it in DC.
Yeah.
It's our things to make our representatives understand that, hey, yeah, this is kind of something we need to look at. So that's where we're at. So I'm trying. I put the feelers out there. I've been waiting to hear back from him. So if I don't hear back from him tomorrow, I'll call and see where we stand. If you guys need that literature, I can print it off and get it out to you guys over your next few days off.
Sure.
So
What was the House bill number?
it's 1415.
14, that's okay.
1415, and like I said, it's just trying to bring it up to that, to give us some help. So that's where we're all at.
Okay. But again, I liked your idea before about the lights stuff, too. you
And
know,
we
if-
can, and I can
if
go
there's-
right
Is there
back.
grants? Because we talked
It
before.
is
there might be-
DOT,
Yeah.
just waiting for them to sign some bills. So if you guys want me to follow that, I will.
Yeah, I think that would be
Okay.
good, you know, if we can get the grants for that, to
Yeah,
be able to, because
I
it would
think-
help all the communities along this, this whole corridor
The whole
here.
corridor through, and it does. It comes through DOT, and I don't mind doing the
Yeah,
paperwork for it.
and because Ohio's responsible for that street anyway. I mean, they pave it and everything else, and
Yep,
so.
it's all theirs, so we'll do it all that, and I'll get back with you if you want to work on it together.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, Dan, while I got there, there was, in the committee report, there were two things that they had asked for. One was an annual report, and I know
Yeah.
Matt Ayer talked to you about some of that stuff.
Mhm.
He's willing to help you out with some of that, so I
Yep.
think that'd be good. And then the other thing that they mentioned in the committee report was just watching for the staffing, how things are going from that standpoint, you know, just, because we do have a good situation, but being sensitive to, you know, since it's 100% part-timers, some kind of report on an ongoing basis, you know.
Absolutely.
That says, here's how we're doing in terms of, you know, we're not running into issues with call-offs or anything else like that.
I can show you that, not only that, and Ms. Van Pelt will tell you she sees the payroll, we know where it's at, but I can also put in how many intakes of applications we get if you want that on a monthly report.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
That'd be good,
Okay.
just to see.
Yeah.
So that was just one of the things that they requested, the
Yeah,
resident committee.
I think we're doing okay. I mean, these guys, they, you know, the blue works, they seem to be happy. I mean, his hair's messed up, but, I mean, I think we've got a good thing. I think there were some things that we could do to help out, and, you know, we want to. We want to help out. We want to do the things and show you guys that we do appreciate being here, and,
the
that
bagpipes.
Watt's playing his bagpipes in the basement. So, we'll work together.
Sure.
You know, I was looking at your solar plan. Me and Matt have already been all over the village because I've had solar panel training in the last 3 weeks. So,
Okay.
you know, that's the stuff now that we're trying to do. I'm going to Mary Elders and doing a safety class. Chief Hines and I are gonna do a community CPR class and then make it available for everybody. So there's some things that we can give back to and, not be hitting everybody up all the time. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's great, that's great, thank
I
you.
just
Has
want to
Rod
add in,
connected with you on that solar panel issue?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
actually, he just texted me back with that. We asked me if I found any more, and then we did find a violation with, they're facing the Northwood area, and they're not supposed to be facing towards Northwood. Not supposed to, so that's what we're finding.
I just want to make a comment that I think that we should avail ourselves of the opportunity to take CPR training. Everybody, if you haven't had it recently, it's changed. And we have the resources to do it. And so that's on my to-do list in 2022.
Gotcha.
Is it still staying alive?
That's it. Don't get around the
No
mouth.
rest- no
Stay
rest-
away from the face.
No rescue breathing anymore.
Oh, you don't do
Yeah.
that anymore?
No,
Nope,
What,
just push hard and fast.
just
what if
push
it's
hard.
Wendy Peppercorn?
Then you can go back in on Wendy Peppercorn, but it's,
Dan, we had talked about when we do the CPR class and open it up to the community and the residents, the only cost to them would be the $10 cost for the card that has to be paid.
Great
to,
idea.
You know, what is the,
American Heart.
American Heart.
And I can't
Association.
get around, I can't wait.
So, I mean, I think there'd be a lot of residents that would take advantage of that, because if they, you know, the more people that know how to do the CPR and are certified in it, the better off we are, you know. So
Yep,
I think that's gonna be, I'm excited about that. I think that'll be a good thing for the residents to be able to partner, or us to partner with them and get that done, so. We're excited about several things that we're gonna put in place now that, you know, that things, that we know where we're at, so.
Great. Any other questions for Mr. Kramer? Good.
Now, I did agree to remain in touch with Mariemont on a pro bono basis for 6 months or so. If some of these issues need, or if you would like another opinion or another voice to assist with some of the new initiatives we're talking about and some of the cost-saving initiatives. So do feel free. Everybody has my phone number. I gave out pens. I've got one more giveaway tonight with the phone number. Somebody wants a fire engine red tote bag, just pick one of these up on the way out. Again, it has my phone number on it. And I'll just leave these here. And those who would like one, feel free to take one. And I think I'll stay for the meeting so I can stay in touch with the community.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I was just wondering, just based off the conversation we just had, you know, we, obviously in the committee of the whole, you know, we do have the municipal building renovations, additions for police, fire, administration. Maybe we should adjust that to say, to also include safety and accommodation for crew. Because that's, I mean,
Well, I agree with you. I would actually, instead of, because the things that they said is, I guess, again, what I took away was no big additions needed. It's more like within the building, trying to get things better for the firefighters here.
right, because I mean, that's a big, to me, that's the most, you know, concerning piece, is making sure that we are accommodating them and that we have things in place for safety. So I don't know, what does the rest of the committee
agree.
think?
I agree.
Adjust that, Joni, then?
I think, certainly we need to stay on top of this. I mean,
Right.
you know, the idea of the equipment and having a strategy moving forward, I'm assuming we would do that so that we have a good plan of attack moving forward.
Yeah, because I wrote safety and accommodation for crew.
Okay.
Instead of the whole renovations additions, right?
Because we're sure, though, it's not, well, is it
Well,
not
the-
renovations, though,
the-
still?
well, I don't know.
Well, that was the purpose of the committee, so you can just say add it in. I wouldn't eliminate it, I'd just say add it
You're
in.
just looking at the fire, you're not looking at anything else.
It just something else to add to the list? Yeah, well, we did have that permanent improvement committee before, and
I just want to make sure that this doesn't get lost, because I mean,
Agreed.
the 4 years that I've been here, I mean,
we've never met on this once.
no. No, exactly.
And
I
and
think-
now we have a good list of things that we could go do. This was more, that was before, it was just like this big
Right.
blob.
We need things to start to happen on this so that we can put a plan in place to accomplish that, I think.
Yeah, what are you gonna say, chief?
I was just gonna say, you know, obviously, if we got financially in a better place than where we're at, then obviously I think we would look at, because every department here in the village is cramped for space, there's no doubt about that. But we realize that where we're at right now, we're not in a position to expand or build a new facility.
Right.
So I don't think we take that completely off, because there is a need for more space with every department. I mean, Joni's department, the police, the fire, you know, the administration, you know, is cramped. But right now, we know that, you know, we're dealing with it and it's fine, it works. But if we get into a position where we can do some expanding, then that would be a good thing also. So I don't know that we take that completely off.
Just, we can
Or
add
that you
it,
take that off, but I agree with you, Ms. Graves, you know, those issues that you just talked about are at the top of the priority list, for sure.
I think that'd be a priority, and I think since we have a list now of what those things are, we can actually, hopefully be able to, you know,
Right.
attack it and actually accomplish some things, so. Right. Okay.
Well, actually, you know, I mean, one thing I think that needs to be noted is, I had approached a private donor about some of these needs, and based on our little detour with Miami, we were denied because he was advised not to be involved with them. So, even though this was a worthwhile exercise, it did cost us a huge donation. So I just felt that that needed to be noted.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that topic? Okay. So we'll move on to the minutes. Before I ask for a motion in a second, I do have one edit, Junie. I said this, but it should be, instead of Plainville, it should be Madisonville.
Okay.
And we corrected it in the minutes, but I just don't want to confuse anybody because I can't remember which street is which.
Okay, can I just?
Yes, you sure may.
Okay.
Okay, except for those at the bottom again. Okay, so can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, on roll call, Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer? Mr. York?
Aye.
Mrs. Graves? Aye. All right, minutes approved. Then for communications, we have the, from Superintendent Scherpenberg, the outsourcing of the mowing contract. So apparently, Grass Corps does not want to take the renewal at 2%. Do we know why? Is it just because they think it should be, they're gonna need to be, it needs to be more than that?
I would assume.
I would
Today's
assume with rising
inflation rate
gas and everything
I would
else.
expect.
Okay.
Plus fuel costs up 30%.
So we'll refer that to Public Works Committee. Okay. Then from Village Engineer Erdl, we have a memo dated November 18th regarding the Murray Path planting and the final cost. I understand that we went over a little bit. Joe?
Yeah, there's a couple things here. Chris's email or note talking about that you're a little bit over on the Raymond landscaping compared to the not to exceed number. We're actually under for the other Raymond landscaping invoice for the water services, so they kind of balance out between the two. But the reason we're over is because we went to sod versus seeding to get the thing done. We ran into construction delays, which forced us to go to sod to get the grass down before the weather changed. And it actually looks a lot better out there. So that's what's going on with that one. The second one is the summary document that I had shared with council to indicate where we're at right now on the spending and the reimbursements and all the rest of that. We're still looking at potentially having a surplus of private contributions after this thing is finished. And so, but we have to wait to see what Ohio Department of Natural Resources reimburses us for a couple invoices that we should be submitting within the next week or two. But there's a chance we're going to have some extra funds left over at the end. And what I plan to do is go back and reach out to our donors and ask them, what should we do with that amount of money? There's some talk about some additional amenities along the path, benches, drinking fountains, things like that. And/or we could use it to fund a design study for the next segment of path. So we're going to look at that. After we're certain that we have this extra money, we'll go back to the donors, because it's really their money, not ours, to see what they think we should do with those excess funds. And so we'll probably know, hopefully by the end of the year, A, do we have excess funds, and B, what did the donors come back for, and say what to do with that money.
So the process, Joe, will be, like you said, we're waiting to see what the Department ODNR pays, what's left, the private donors will then there'll be a reimbursement, or not a reimbursement, but the private donor money will come to the village for just those things that ODNR did not cover, and then.
Yeah, if you look at the spreadsheet, in the middle of the spreadsheet shows we're going to cut a $52,000 check from the private funds to reimburse Mariemont for the non-reimbursed expenses.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look in the one line, we're indicating that we're going to get $23,486 from ODNR reimbursement. If that doesn't occur, then we'll have to cut another $23,000 out of the private funds. But as at this point, we think ODNR will reimburse us, that's 75% on that line item, but we don't know until we submit it and see what they do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's at. But there'll be a $52,000 check coming from, the private contributions are sitting in a 501c3 bank account right now. And they come over once the village spends more than the Columbia Township contribution of $75,000 to this thing. Right now, up until this week, we didn't spend more than $75,000. That changed when we processed the Raymond landscaping invoices.
I do think that if the donors decide, not to focus the additional funds on the design study, that should be something that the next council needs to be thinking about in terms of a design study for the future of the path, right? So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do.
But again, it's not council's money, it's the donors' money.
No, I understand.
And
I'm
so the
just saying
donors
if-
will decide where that money goes to.
What I'm saying is if the donors decide not to do that, I think that is something that council needs to be thinking about, new council in 2022, of a design study for how else you're going to get it from point A to point B.
I would tend to agree with you, because this thing is probably going to come in where the village of Mariemont's not putting anything in on this first phase. We kind of approved a $15,000 potential backstop from the village, but that's probably not going to be necessary. And we may actually have excess funds because we've done such a good job in managing this project through so far. But I would say that next segment is going to require a design study to determine the alternatives and then make the selection of the preferred alternative. And it's going to take some money to do that process. Now, I will tell you that we had a meeting this morning with some stakeholders about the path. We believe that there is money available, both at the state and federal level, to pay for that next segment. We also believe that the Crown campaign has raised enough money to pay for the match, so we won't have to do another fundraising effort again. So if we can figure out what we want to do on that next segment, there's money out there. I'm pretty confident the money's going to be available to build.
Right, we just got to get that design study
Exactly.
done.
I would assume that.
It's gonna be a lot of-
Would be what they'd want to do with it, wouldn't you?
What's that?
We'll find
That
out.
excess money is to perpetuate it. for
Yeah,
the
I
next
don't,
phase.
again, we've had, probably, I want to say about 35 donors who contributed substantial amounts, and that's the 35 we're going to go to and see what they think. Again, it's not my money, it's not
Recognize
council's
too.
money, it's the donors' money.
But I'm just
And
saying,
we're
yeah,
gonna
if
figure out
they
what they wanna do.
don't, I think this council needs to be seriously considering that in the next year. Okay. Thank you, Joe. So it looks like we need an authorization, I think by show of hands, Joni said would be okay to authorize the additional 1873.
I'm in favor.
I'm sorry, what was that? What do I-
Authorizing the
additional.
additional 1873
Okay.
from council. Okay. Okay. All right, so we are at the permission to address council. Don't know that there's anybody here, but we did. Tony, Rob got this nifty little thing, so we're gonna give it to you for moving forward. You just put it there and you hold it up and it automatically counts down. So we have a new timer to use until maybe Rob finds something better, I don't know. But at least people can see it and it.
3.
And it just automatically will count down, so you can see it. So at least it's something. Anyway, permission to address council.
Looks like it's pretty quiet out there
Yeah.
tonight.
Okay. All right, so we move on to the bills. Yep. So a motion and a second to approve the bills, or pay the bills.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, on roll call, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Selster,
Aye.
Mr. York,
Aye.
Mrs. Graves. Aye. All right, so we have, it's like one committee report.
Yes, from the Health and Recreation Committee regarding the Mariemont Pool Management Operations for the 2022 season. The Health and Recreation Committee met on November 18th to discuss options for the management of the village pool during 2022 season. Present at the meeting were Health and Recreation Committee members Stelzer, Graves, and Lewis, Mayor Brown, Councilperson York, Pool Commissioner President Powder, and representatives from Cincinnati Pool Management and Swim Safe Pool Management. The committee was informed that the village did not receive a letter of interest for the pool manager position. There was a brief presentation by both management companies that included a question and answer session with meeting attendees. One change from the original request for proposal was discussed with the management companies. The Village of Mariemont requested the option until March 1st, 2022 to remove the services related to concession stand from the new contract. This request will allow the village to further investigate the selection of a different company to manage the concession stands only. This change was acceptable to both companies. Pool Commission President Powder shared the unanimous recommendation from the Pool Commission to select Cincinnati Pool Management as the management company for the 2022 pool season, as well as some of the reasons for the selection. There was a deliberation of the various alternatives, and the committee unanimously recommends to full council the selection of Cincinnati Pool Management to manage the pool for the 2022 season. Members of the Pool Commission are in the process of identifying pool-related tasks not covered by the management company proposal to assign responsibility to assure they will be properly completed next season. Respectively submitted and signed by Joe Stelzer, Olivia Graves, and Marcy Lewis. Joe, you got it? You got the sign?
Yeah.
Well,
I got it. Pass it around.
oh, that's-
Here you are.
Okay, that's the report. I need a motion and a second to approve the report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
They did a wonderful job putting it all together.
Yeah, this was, I really have to commend the pool commissioner president, Mandy Powder. She did a great job about taking some examples of requests for proposals that we'd received that other municipalities had submitted and use those to tailor a request for proposal for the Village of Mariemont to request these proposals to come in. So she did an unbelievable job putting all that stuff together. There will be some things along the way that we're going to have to manage probably next year, but we're pretty comfortable with the pool management company we're selecting. You know, we've been fighting a battle with that pool for a while. Our revenues were decreasing, our attendance was going down. We made some changes in the last couple of years to try to improve those statistics, and we made some improvement, but some of it was because we raised prices down there, so now we have to be able to provide a product to match with those higher prices we're charging people. And I think that this move to this management company is going to help us improve the overall quality of the pool and the experience for the residents. I will talk a little bit about this idea about having a separate management company for the concession stand. The individual that we were talking to about this did not want to submit a proposal at this point in time because they typically wait until the spring to figure out what they're going to do with the operation of the concession stands, and so that's why we asked for this variance to wait until March 1st to make that decision. And what would happen is that under the current management agreement with the two pool management companies, they provide the help to work the concession stand. They provide some of the inventory expertise, stuff like that. But we get the risk of the revenues and we get the risk of the purchases to staff, or not the staff, but to basically provide goods within that concession stand. The other model that's out there is we turn the concession stand completely over to a management company, and they give us a concession back based upon, you know, what they make on the process. We don't have the risk for revenues. We don't have the risk for, you know, exorbitant costs. So those are the two different styles. But we at least have it covered with the current contract that someone will be staffing that concession stand. There's just a potential for a greater opportunity by going with this company that specializes in concession stands. And we actually found out in Cincinnati there's another company that does this for another local pool, so we'll be investigating that over the next couple months. So,
But we have until March 1st, is that right?
March 1st, yeah.
Yeah, so March 1st to figure that out. Okay.
Gives us a little bit of time. And again, it's not that difficult of a process. The management company can then, you know, they were completely okay with the idea of giving us the option. So
Good.
we just want them to get started on the rest of it. And then, you know, we can deal with the concession stand by March 1st.
It's good to hear that there's another option too for the concession stand, the local one.
And both of these companies were good companies, you know, just have to say that. The references that we checked back with, you know, some of their current customers came back very good. Either of them would have been a good choice. With the decision was they're a little more comfortable with Cincinnati Pool Management. Both the pool commission and I think the committee members were too, after listening to the presentations. But it will only be a one-year contract. So if we find out it's not the right person, we can figure out what to do at the end of 1 year.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this. What's our payment schedule on those? Is it monthly or is it, I don't remember.
I believe the proposal has it in there, but you pay a little bit up front, but you pay, you know.
Right,
pay as
because
you
we
go.
have outs, obviously, but you have to staff it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're committed to that first season. I mean, if they decided, you know, they don't provide anybody, then obviously we could probably go to court and not pay them anything.
Right.
But that's not what typically happens here. I mean, now, you know, and I can talk about this, there's, you know, the force majeure clauses sometimes. You know, if they find out that, you know, there's another pandemic and they can't hire people, you probably can't enforce the contract at that point. But, you know, I don't anticipate anything that radical.
No.
With these two.
It was a comprehensive search. I was, you know, I came into this late and it was impressive. That we're gonna miss stuff, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the work they did is exceptional. And the other thing I thought about, if you think about a lot of what the maintenance department did down there, that's all covered now. So I think in the long run, our cost of operating that pool may be less next year than it was this year.
I do believe that going to the management company, we're going to have lower costs. It's just real hard to show it on paper because we don't know how much time the maintenance department has spent down there in the past dealing with things. These guys are experts at it. I will share this. The one visit when they came in, they looked at one pump and said, you shouldn't be running that at 100%. You should be running it at 75. It's got too much capacity and you're bypassing your filter system. These people know, you know, these pools like the back of their hand. So we're gonna get a better product at the end of the day. But yeah, trying to measure that cost savings is difficult. But I believe, and you know, a member of the pool commission who looked at the numbers also believe we're going to be at a lower cost.
I agree.
Okay. All right, so now we accept the report. Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
Mrs. Graves? Aye.
Would this stay on the agenda in some capacity?
Well, I guess I want to make sure that we're authorized to go ahead and negotiate the contract because that's the next step.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
So give Ed the, you know, necessary power to negotiate the contract. And then I guess we'd have to bring it back for final signing authorization.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I'll just
thinking.
leave it on the agenda in some, just so that it's still under there for discussion.
Right, but again, I think we can have all council say, bring the contract back. We don't need to keep it in the committee at this point. I think the committee's work is done. And we got one remaining council meeting before the end of the year. So if we can get that contract negotiated and ready to go, I would recommend we try to go for an emergency at that last meeting so it's done, ready to go. I would imagine the management company, knowing that council has approved the selection of these guys, with just the pending contract, they can get started on all their work.
You want to just leave it on to the end of the year and.
That's fine, they can
next
drop
meeting,
off
and
at
then
the,
we can take it off.
yeah.
Joe, because you brought up, the report brings up a good point about how there might be other related tasks that are not covered by the management company. So is that's something we're gonna have to also address, right? Whoever has health and rec next year would.
Right, the process right now, the pool, two of the members of the pool commission are going through and identifying those tasks, getting them down on paper. Then we're gonna have to figure out who's gonna be doing those tasks next year. Something like, the question comes into, who's gonna handle the registrations? Because, typically we have our own system to do that.
Yep.
And the pool management company would not be on the front end of that. Also, who's gonna handle the marketing to get the information out to get people to sign up? So we have to identify who's going to be doing those tasks and just make sure we don't drop the ball on some of these things.
Yeah, so actually, I take that back. I was saying health and rec, but if I think about it, I mean, Jordan reported to Bill as the mayor. I'm assuming the mayor would then be responsible for making sure those additional tasks are getting done, because that's how it was before. Before, Jordan was the one who's doing it, and now he'll be the one who.
In a perfect world, the administrator will be doing all this stuff.
I agree with you.
But in the meantime, we'll have the task identified. Somebody needs to be assigned to it, and so you're all, whoever's on council next year, the couple of you that are still be there, you need to figure out that those tasks have been assigned, and you know who's responsible for them.
Yeah.
And it could be Bill or it could be somebody else.
Yeah, so, well, I think Bill should be, because again, Jordan reported to him before, so he oversaw those operations. So I would assume he'd be one who would also make sure all these operations are.
Right,
done,
and the
since
other,
we don't have a village
there's
administrator.
another question that kind of floats around a little bit about who does the management company report to? Who manages the manager? And so in theory, it would be Bill again,
Yep,
unless
Agreed.
we figure out someone else is going to be assigned that responsibility.
agree,
But that's,
yeah.
those tasks have to be identified and then they have to be assigned.
So that's sort of an outstanding item that has to be addressed still. as
It's
well.
in
So,
process,
Yeah,
right.
once we see the list, I think that'll help us to be able to say,
And some of it also is we could probably go back to the management company and say, can you do this? Here's a couple of things that weren't specifically mentioned in the request for proposal. Can they do some of this stuff? Because they're going to have an aquatics manager, is what they call them, on site that's going to be dealing with some of the customer relations stuff and all the rest of stuff. So some of the stuff they may be able to do.
okay,
So, but that's where the contract, the RFPs is just the start of the process where they give you the proposal. The contract's going to spell out a little bit more of this stuff. We just have to make sure everybody's on the same page.
perfect.
But I will guarantee you there will be something that will be missed during this process. I've done too many of these management company situations, setting them up, and there's usually something that there's some misunderstanding about, we thought you were going to do this, no, I thought you were going to do that, and you just have to figure it out. And so, but again, these guys, this isn't their first time at the rodeo, so they've done this with numerous pools and numerous communities. So, I don't expect it to be, a large miss, but there will be a miss somewhere along the way.
Okay. Does anybody else have any verbal report outs on their committees they want to share? Okay. We talked, Joni, for safety, just for the person that's coming in, just to have this cleaned up a little bit, I want to change it to established process to address traffic and speed concerns. And take off all the rest of that. Yeah, established process to address traffic and speed concerns. Thank you.
Dennis Walter did that 10 years ago.
I have it. It's just a little too much.
Yeah. But it could be, it helps start the process
Right,
to have that.
yeah. We had 3 or 4 conversations on the topic, and I just didn't have it in me to get
Oh,
it
yeah.
home.
It's a lot.
But I hope to at least, whoever takes over safety committee, to be able to position them in a better spot, so,
Agree.
with their one item That's not too bad. Not too bad.
Impressive closeout.
Exactly, I tried. Okay, so if no other verbal report outs, then we'll move on to miscellaneous, correct? All right. So leaf season is October 25th, 2021 through Thursday, December 3rd, 2021. As a reminder, don't rake leaves into the street. Rumpke will take bagged leaves if residents don't want to wait for the leaf vacuum truck. They have been better this year. For me, it's been clockwork every Monday. I don't know what with the other streets, but hopefully that'll continue. Village offices will be closed November 25th and 26th in observation of Thanksgiving. The council meeting in December will be Monday, December 20th at 6:30 p.m. And village offices will be closed Friday, December 24th and Friday, December 31st in observation of Christmas and New Year's Day. So that takes us to resolutions. We have a couple.
2 resolutions. The first one, to confirm the appointment of Rod Holloway as village zoning officer to set compensation and to declare emergency.
That was the second reading, so we need a motion and a second to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
On roll call, Mr.
Aye.
Bartlett, Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
Mrs. Graves. Aye.
Now we have the third reading.
To confirm the appointment of Rod Holloway as village zoning officer to set compensation and to declare emergency.
On roll call, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
Mrs. Graves. Aye.
I don't think we had a motion second to adopt it. We had roll call,
Oh,
but we need
a
a motion.
motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
We
Mr.
already-
Bart,
Yeah, we already did the roll
Okay.
call.
Don't have to go again.
Okay, but now we need a motion and a second to invoke the emergency.
Motion-
Moved.
Second.
Okay. No. Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
Mrs. Graves. Aye.
Okay? Now we have,
Any discussion?
no, that was the emergency.
All right.
So now we have the first reading on Ken, guys.
Okay. First reading, a resolution hiring Ken Geis Consulting Group Ltd. for consultation on economic development projects within the village of Mariemont and to declare emergency.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to suspend the rules to allow for the second and third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Yeah, to suspend the rules? Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
Mrs. Graves. Aye.
Second reading?
Yep.
Resolution hiring Ken Geis Consulting Group Ltd. for consultation on economic development projects within the village of Mariemont and to declare emergency.
Any discussion? Right? Discussion.
I got one point or one question. To pass this on emergency, you need 5 votes, don't you?
And, yeah, she counts.
Is that
I
true?
didn't hear what you said, Joe.
To pass this on emergency, you need 5 votes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't agree with this process, but I'm not going to vote against it today because I am not happy with the idea that we're hiring a village resident to do something that, in my mind, should be donated at this point, these services. To me, this is a slap in the face to a lot of people who spend a lot of time volunteering within this community. But again, I'm not going to vote against it today because, you know, I don't want to hold it up any further. But I don't agree with it.
Joe, I might have misunderstood you. You need 5 out of 6 to suspend the rules. They have a second and third reading. You need 5 out of 6 to invoke the emergency clause. You don't need 5 out of 6 to actually approve this. So if you approved it today with just 4 of you, then we wouldn't actually hire the fellow until 30 days from now runs out, if you follow me.
Not really.
Okay.
You want to go through that again?
Well, if you guys invoke the emergency clause tonight, then Mr. Geis could be hired tomorrow. If
Okay.
you don't invoke the emergency clause tonight, he will be hired, but his work will not take effect until 30 days from now.
Okay, but again, no reason to
Same
hold it up for
might
one
be a
vote. I
distinction
mean,
without a
it's an
difference. I
unfortunate
just wanna make
situation
sure.
that we don't have all 6 council members here tonight.
Right.
And so while I disagree with it, I'm not going to hold it up.
I understand.
So,
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Third reading?
Resolution hiring Ken Geis Consulting Group Limited for consultation on economic development projects within the village of Mariemont and to declare emergency.
Okay, so now we need a motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
Mrs. Graves? Aye.
Now we need a motion and a second to invoke the emergency.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks, Rob.
I thought I'd give you a chance. You've been quiet so long.
Roll call?
Okay, Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
Mrs. Graves? Aye.
We have
Ordinances?
the ordinance, we have
Yeah,
just
we
a
have
one first
just
reading.
one. The first one's tabled. The second one, to amend Section 79, Schedule 1 of the Mariemont Code of Ordinances to include no parking on West Street between Thorndike and Madisonville Road.
That was just the first reading?
For the second meeting at the next meeting.
Okay. And we don't have to do roll call on that, right? Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I think, Tony, we're sort of done with the audit right now, so should we be passing that on to the audit committee, I guess? Is that the next, what do you think is the right next step? Or do we need to wait to hear anything more back from?
So I sent the stuff back to the auditor, the signed documents, and he just said thanks. I don't know, you probably saw the email about the other item.
Ready.
So, yeah, we can forward that on to the audit committee, and they can take a look at it. We can discuss it with them, yes.
Because I know we formed that committee and we haven't had any formal meetings with them
Yeah,
so
it's-
far. Because we were waiting for the auditors to get done, so.
Yeah, it's still in draft mode. We haven't received the final, but draft is fine. It's not gonna change.
Well, we can wait. I mean, if it's still draft, we can wait till it's finalized. Let's just wait till it's finalized. I didn't know, I wasn't sure where, I'm not really as familiar with the process about.
Yeah, they should get us finals here anytime soon.
Okay,
sometime
we'll
soon.
wait till the final comes in and then we can just do it then. So it's final, so.
Good?
No, well, the other thing is, for the three of us coming back, and two of you are not, but thank you. I mean, we have one more meeting together. What I wanted to try to do, and I'll get something together and circulate it, is to get everyone together, council, Rick, you guys are invited if you want to come, just to sit down and have what do you want? What do we want to accomplish in 2022? What committees do we want to get? What do we see as, not necessarily SWOT analysis, but let's all get together and kind of have an open discussion about what do we see and what do we want to do in 2022 or 2023, 2024 with the new council. So I'll put all that together. We can choose our committees at that point and some things like that. I think that to get it together and to kind of have a vision, I think would be, I know I operate better under those circumstances.
And I think if it would be, then it would need to be a public.
It would have to be a public
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah.
So,
I think we could do, some of the stuff, like, at least people could say, here's the top 3 committees, because Maggie used to do that before. Maggie was the one who you would send it, ask each of us to submit to her. And maybe Kelly would become now the most senior person since you're gonna be stepping down, and so maybe Kelly could go ahead and just do that, bring that step to say, hey, list your top 3, priority order, what committees you wanna be on. And then we can hit the ground running in that first council meeting, hopefully. Instead of collecting it at the first council meeting, because we can collect it before in advance, just an email, just saying, and then come to that first council meeting and talk through it and finalize what the committee assignments will be at the meeting then.
So
right?
add that to the agenda then for the
Absolutely.
first meeting.
So, okay.
So Rob, you asked me today to give you the listing of projects off the top of my head that, Mariemont may need to address at some point in the future. At the top of that list is a master plan for this community.
Agree.
I mean, the last one that I have been told was prepared was John Nolan's 100 years ago for this place. It's time to update that master plan, and that might be your document at some point that's going to help you, be your guide towards where should you be putting your energies in the future.
Right. Well, I agree with you, Joe, because I think that's really what the strategic plan things that we're working on right now. So hopefully that other separate committee that's Kelly, Randy, and myself, we've gotten 2 different bids from people to help lead us in a process of creating a strategic plan, master plan, whatever you want to call it. But it does sort of like the SWOT analysis and then thinks about where you want to be heading. Because I totally agree with you. That's what should be driving, that's the end point you're shooting for, right? And then that makes sure whatever decisions you're making are heading in that direction instead of heading over in this direction.
Exactly.
So yeah, that, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the next council meeting, we'll have a recommendation about maybe who can lead us in that strategic planning stuff.
Yeah, we've gone through the process of who would be included in this, multi-generational, because, we're all about the same age. We know what we want, but we need to, you're younger, but.
Yeah, thanks. I
need to-
appreciate not
yeah.
quite in the same group.
But it'll be an iterative process too. It's not a one and done. It's an iterative process. But I totally agree with you, Joe. We need to have that, and so hopefully we'll have a recommendation about somebody to lead us in that.
Wasn't there like a strategic plan done like 10, 12, 15 years ago by?
There was a Vision 2021 plan put together.
That really wasn't a plan, it was a basket of ideas, is the way it was labeled, and, it had 10 top ideas. But, what we've heard over the past couple of years is, the MPF has kind of run back and not supporting some of those ideas anymore, a lot of the administrator. So, I mean, it's time to redo, that's kind of like a baby plan, but you need to go a little bit further than that to actually put the plan into somewhat of a prioritized list of things you want to try to accomplish.
Okay. One more thing, obvious. So we got, Joni sent out an email about permanent improvements budget and their needs for 2022 and a 5-year plan. So we need to set a time for that meeting.
Are you gonna do that this year, or are you gonna do it with the new council?
The council, like before or after the first meeting of the year is what I'm
Okay, then,
thinking.
then we should include the
Okay.
new people.
So, but we have because I think before, this past year, we did it the first council meeting right before the, like 5:30 or whatever.
Mhm.
So we had time to get through it, and then, or we could do it afterwards, I don't care, whichever.
Either way.
I would, sure some of the people would prefer to have before versus
Sure.
after instead of staying longer, so.
Can you set it now, or do you need to wait to set the
No, I
meeting
mean,
until?
if you guys wanna do that, then I'll just send it to the new people. Does that work for you?
Sure, sure.
You guys?
Do it at 5:30 or something?
5:30 before the
First
The
council meeting in
10th,
January.
I think. January 10th, I think, is the first
Yeah,
one.
yeah, 3rd is a Monday, yeah.
January 10th. How did I know that? Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right, it's been fun. Meeting
Did a good
adjourned.
job.
Nice job.
Nice
Bob, yeah.
job.
Yay.